Hi friends, welcome back to the garden. Today we are taking out a lot of this, what I call the pasture area. So this garden is very messy and I am done with it. What we have happening over here is we had, well, this area right in the middle here was where we put all of our brassicas. So it was my broccoli, my cabbage, cauliflower, and kohlrabi. I pulled all that out and then I put in my potatoes, and only a couple of my potatoes are actually germinating, so that kind of sucks. The rest of them just didn't really send up eyes, but that's the risk you take when you buy store-bought potatoes. I bought these store-bought potatoes. I've done that many times. I might have cut them too small, but either way they just didn't really produce any eyes for me, so that sucks. But that was my whole plan for this whole area. I got a couple, so we'll take what we can get. And then I had back in the back, I had a whole bunch of cantaloupe, watermelon, and then here I have butternut squash and pumpkins. And so this whole area became just overrun with vines. So I couldn't get back in here at all. It was all vines. There's squash everywhere. There's so much happening back here. And then I've kind of given this up. It's like, okay, let the vines go crazy. We're fine with that. And then the volunteer tomatoes have really started to grow. I have a ton of volunteer tomatoes. So we got volunteer tomatoes, we got a couple of weeds that have taken over. I have a massive zucchini back there, I think that is still alive. And now in between all of the vines, I had all the grass grow. It looks terrible, and now the vines, for the pumpkins at least, and the butternut squash are starting to die back. So we're gonna come in here and we're gonna start harvesting. I see a whole bunch of pumpkins. I'm just gonna start kind of ripping everything out and try to reclaim some of this space. It just looks terrible. So we're gonna see if we can't reclaim some of it. So I'm gonna start, my plan is to start by pulling out everything, just by ripping. If ripping wouldn't work, I could go get my weed eater and just cut everything down and then cut it down as far as I could get cardboard and put straw over it, and that's the easiest way to do it. But I'm gonna try ripping first and see what happens. So I brought out a basket. My intention is not to harvest the potatoes like let's come out here and harvest potatoes. Or not potatoes, pumpkins. But if I pull out a plant of miniature pumpkins, then I'm fine with that. It's Labor Day weekend, and it has been fall temperatures here for the last like 2 weeks. I think the highest we've gotten is maybe like 81, 82. So it's a little warm right now here in the sun, but up at the house, there's a nice breeze. It's actually really cool. So I'm predicting that snow flies here in November. Typically we don't get snow until maybe December, but this has been, I think, an early fall. So I'm predicting snow flies earlier than normal. And so I think summer is done, so I think it's time to kind of start clearing some stuff out. I have a lot of stuff to put to bed this year, so might as well get started on it now. So let's just start ripping. See, this was the danger of leaving a pumpkin. Something's been eating it. I never thought something would eat it. So something has been having a good snack. We got a little itty bitty kohlrabi, and I know I have a bigger one in here too. Cute little pumpkin in the front, little eaten in the back, but I'm still going to use him at least for outside decoration. Now, I have a ton of little cherry tomatoes on here. I think I am going to harvest them just to see if they do anything, if they ripen inside. I typically wouldn't do this, but I'm feeling the need for it today. It's been about 30 minutes and it looks a lot better. It may not show up on screen, but it looks so much better. I don't really have things that are taller than me now, which is nice. There are still some plants I'm leaving. I still have zucchini. The zucchini looks it looks dead. Typically with zucchini, you get squash spores that will actually come decapitate the plant. I don't think the plant is decapitated. I think it's thirsty. We haven't had any rain and I've not been watering. So I think now that I have this more open, I think I'm gonna come in and try to do some watering this evening, water that, see if that comes back, because I'm still getting zucchini. I have a cauliflower here, never gave me a head. So we'll see if the cauliflower plant gives me a head this fall. And then I still have some butternut squashes. I still have some watermelon over here. Let me take time and show you all the stuff I found, because I found a lot of stuff. I'm gonna clean up this area too, and you can see obviously I still have more to do. That's kind of like back along the fence. I didn't get to that, but I did get to this area here. Again, it's not perfect. I'm trying not to pull. There's a tomato somewhere right here. There's a tomato that kind of snakes out. I'm kind of letting that go. There's still a couple of melons in here. I could have done better on that area, but I think that's fine for now, because again, I also have a butternut squash. I have some vines here. So I didn't really know where the vines originated from, but I did do down here. And right now we just threw it all over the fence, and then I'll come in a couple of days after what I pulled has died and truck it all out of here. But we pulled everything out of here and then largely out of here. So we found a couple of butternut squashes. I have a couple of potatoes. They're not really giving me any potatoes yet, so we'll see if I get anything from them. There's that zucchini that I think just needs some water. There's another one back there. And then back in here is all of my sweet potato plants. And they were getting, I think, really shaded out. So I'm hoping I get sweet potatoes. So I'm hoping now that I've cleaned that area out and given them a little bit more sun, they'll have some more sun and they'll do better. Coming back here, I have 2 watermelons. I knew about the one and I found the other one like 2 days ago. And then over here, I found a little watermelon back in there. So keep an eye on that. I don't know if I pulled the vines for that or not. It's an awesome pumpkin. I have another pumpkin back in there. But then when I was pulling, I have a little cantaloupe there coming. And then if we come over here, oh, I see some tomatoes I missed. I have another pumpkin there. So let's pull these guys. Oops. And then I also have this area over here. And I did want to pull this. These are all volunteer tomatoes. There is my big artichoke in that bed, but I'm ready to put this bed to bed. This was my plan. However, it has tomatoes. And the tomatoes are still heavily producing. So I was like, you know what? We got time. So while this does still look messy, 100%, it looks a lot better than it did. And then what I'll do when I'm ready to kind of put it to bed is, even like in this area where it's still a little messy, I'll come pull a little bit more. But I will just put cardboard over it, maybe bring the weeder, cut everything down to the ground a little bit more. I really could have done better than that, but there's a lot of stuff in there. I really didn't want to try to pull stuff. But at least I can get out here and I can walk out here. And again, when I'm ready, just cover the whole thing with straw. I'll amend the beds and then I'll cover the whole thing with straw. But we got a couple of things growing in here. I was really excited to have fall potatoes in here, to have like a big fall patch of potatoes. And I got my mouth down. I think what I did wrong is I think I cut the potatoes too small. I checked the potatoes. I was like pulling back the straw to see what we have. And they don't have eyes on them, but I'm thinking I cut the potatoes too small, so they don't have any, like, there's no power to grow the leaf. So that's a learning lesson for next year. Hopefully next year I don't make that same mistake. But stay tuned for the next video. I think I actually might put some more stuff here. So you have to stay tuned for the next video. See if I actually do that. I have a plan. But let's go in. I got a nice little harvest. So I thought I'd go in and I'd show you everything we got. I already talked myself out of my plan. So my plan was, I was thinking in that space that's now open, I could put fall plants. I already have a couple of fall plants. So I was like, okay, I'll go get more. And it is like August 30th. My first frost is typically the first weekend in October. And I think it's gonna be early this year. We are in, like I said, we're in very cool weather. So I'm kind of thinking, even though like your fall plants, your brassicas, your lettuces can survive a little frost, I am now thinking I might be too late. I did get some stuff in about 2 weeks ago, but I'm now thinking I might only have like a month until potentially a frost. So I think I just talked myself right out of my original plan, and that's gonna be okay. We still have a lot to do other than planting new things. But let me show you what we got. So I've decided this is gonna be a harvesting weekend because I have so much coming in, or harvesting and processing weekend. So I also decided, because it's so cool here, I'm decorating for fall on Labor Day. I know that breaks the purpose of Labor Day. Labor Day is supposed to be a summer holiday, but it feels like fall and I want to do it. And I have a busy next couple of weeks, so I thought, you know what, we're gonna do it. So I got a nice little stack of pumpkins, and there might be some more I missed. I wasn't honestly looking to harvest pumpkins, so that's okay. Look at it. That's a cutie little basket. Oh, you can't even see. So it's a cutie little pile of pumpkins. That'll be perfect for fall decorating. And then zucchini. I've never, ever had zucchini still coming in September. Ever. And out of my 4 plants, 3 are still producing. So that's really great. Couple kohlrabi. I'm gonna have to buy kohlrabi. I planted about 17 kohlrabi plants, and most of them stay this small. And then if you don't immediately use them, they shrivel up to nothing. So this one's a nice size. I'm gonna need to immediately use them though in order to do anything with them. I harvested a whole bunch of green tomatoes. We'll see. I'm gonna leave them here, see if they ripen for me. If not, I can just compost them, but I thought I'd try. And so I have a ton of cherry tomatoes, so we gotta figure out what we're doing here. But the garden might be on its way out, or I guess summer is on its way out, but the garden is still heavily producing. So I'll show you, I'll put everything out, I'll show you what I got today, and I'll show you the harvest I got 2 days ago. If you ever thought about gardening, I'm telling you, now is the time to do it. I'm a little biased because it's my garden, but like, look at all of that food. This entire counter is filled with food. I mean, come on. So let's talk through a little bit of this food. So the problem with the garden is if you start gardening, one of the problems you're quickly going to come into is the burden of abundance. So you get a ton of food and you kind of have to figure out what you're going to do with it. You can either let it go to waste, but that's always food that's just going to waste. So if you decide to start gardening, or you are gardening, one of the things that you want to think about constantly is what you're going to do with your harvest. There's no point in planting a garden and letting it all go to waste. So I try to take advantage of every single thing that comes out of my garden and try to find a way to use it so it's not literal food just going to waste. So the pumpkins, these pumpkins are just going to be for decoration. I grew these 1,000% for decoration for fall because they're adorable. I also have a ton of big pumpkins outside still, probably at least 6. So that I think is really exciting. It's gonna be great for fall decorating. That's my main goal with pumpkins, but then I always at least have one for, or not always, this is my 2nd year, growing a pumpkin for my own pumpkin pie. So I think the one that I've already picked by accident that's on the, I'm covered in briars. The pumpkin that's in the garden that is on the chair I picked by accident, that one is the one that I have set aside for a pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving, as long as it's still good. I picked it in like mid-August, so to keep it good until November, I might be pushing it, but I at least have backup pumpkins for my Thanksgiving pumpkin pie, and then once I'm done with them for decoration, once they start maybe showing signs of going soft, I get them out, cook them down, and then I freeze all that pumpkin for future desserts and bacon and stuff like that. So the big pumpkins are great because you can use them for decoration, and then you can also use them for cooking and desserts and stuff. I have a whole bunch of tomatoes between, so this from the zucchini up is today's harvest, and then back here is yesterday's harvest. Well, these 2 cherry tomato containers are from today, but I got a couple of peppers, a whole bunch of green beans, and some tomatoes 2 days ago. So I am gonna make tomorrow, I think, I'm going to do another homemade pasta dish with our cherry tomatoes and our fresh basil and all that stuff. So I think I'm gonna do that tomorrow. Now I'll use some of these up. And then I honestly think I'm just gonna keep freezing them like this. I've been using these a lot in cooking, just tossing them into stuff. And they have really good flavor. So I think I'm just gonna keep a bag of like frozen cherry tomatoes in my freezer to use with fresh cooking. I think that would be fun. Green beans I'm still freezing. If I got a big enough harvest, I would can some. My green bean arch doesn't give me a big enough harvest to can some though. So I think I'm gonna have to buy my green beans for canning. I only do like 2 or 3 cans a year. That typically lasts me, but I think I'm gonna have to purchase them outright because I don't think, like, this is probably enough green beans for maybe 1 quart. Green beans can hold green beans shrink down a lot. And then the tomatoes, I'm still taking the big tomatoes and just throwing them in the freezer. Come fall or winter, when I don't have so much going on, we'll get those tomatoes out and we'll cook them down. We can cook them into any number of things. I have no idea what I'm actually going to cook them down for, but for right now, I just cut the top and the bottom off, core them, and put them in a freezer bag in the freezer, and then whenever I'm ready for them, that's when I use them. And then the zucchini, we're just eating the zucchini as it comes in. I've already frozen some into some chocolate zucchini muffins. I made some zucchini coffee cake, which was not, that recipe I used was not a massive success, so I need to play with that, but I did put some in the freezer. And then I also made a zucchini blackberry cupcake. I forgot the sugar on it though, so you have to add a glaze to it to like make it a dessert, but that's still good and that'll still get eaten. So I kind of ran out of things to do with zucchini. So we'll see if I do any more zucchini processing for the freezer. Right now I'm just I think I have 3 big ones on the dining room table. I have a butternut squash on the dining room table that I picked a couple days ago. So right now the produce is really just rolling in. So we just have to start getting busy, getting all this processed. But I do feel a lot better with that pasture. It doesn't look perfect by any means. It's still August. The weeds are still growing. But I do think it looks better than what it did. I at least can get back there. I can walk through that whole space now. And now that I can actually access it, I couldn't access it for most of the summer. Again, the watermelon, the butternut squash, the pumpkin vines, all that took up that whole space. And now they're dying back. The weeds took up that whole space. So now that I can access it, it'll be easier to go in there again and keep weeding. As I get more cardboard, I'll start putting those beds to bed. And we are going to start transitioning. I have the beet bed that I'm going to harvest those beets this week. I might do them today. I was going to do them on this video, but it is 2 o'clock and it's not hot outside, but for some reason in the garden I think is 10 degrees hotter than any place else on my property. The garden just gets beat with the sun and it's hot. I think my face looks a little red right now on camera. So we're just going to wait till this evening. I might pull those beets and then I think almost every single bed is going to start getting ready to go to bed. So as I come home from work these next couple of weeks, I can just start amending the beds and putting straw on them and kind of putting them to bed for the winter. And this is the one thing I say, like I say every single year, the August curse comes and the August curse takes over the entire garden. Your plants start dying back, but the weeds start really growing, but you can always get it under control. It doesn't take long to get everything pulled out and kind of start getting it back in control. And I did forget to show, I was going to show you, it's ugly so you don't really need to see it, but I also pulled out the corn patch. And I just had to borrow my dad's machete today because I got a couple of vines in there, a couple of sunflowers that I can't pull out myself and need to chop them down. So that area has started going to bed too. So slowly we're going to start transitioning this garden back to bed for the winter. And I'm excited to get it controlled again. I'm excited to get control of this garden again because it's wild. It happens every year, but I am going to miss it when it goes. I will say I did already decide next year, one of the things I didn't like with this garden this year is I didn't have enough flowers. I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't put enough flowers. So I made a new rule for myself that every single bed will have at least 1 flower, if not like 1 on each end. I really like flowers. I really like the color. I really like having something pretty in my garden. And this year I really prioritized the plants, the vegetables, and not the flowers. And it wasn't my prettiest garden to date. It was probably my most productive garden, but not the prettiest one. So next year I need to definitely prioritize making sure I have a lot more flowers throughout that garden. But we are now in the home stretch to start getting that garden put to bed. I do have some fall plants in there. I'll bring you guys along when we do the Labor Day garden tour to show you those fall plants. That's an experiment to see if I get anything. So I'm hoping I do, but we'll see. But yeah, so it's the end of August. September is here, and the garden is making its last hurrah before she goes to bed for the winter. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, friends.